Hello everyone, I'm Jack Dunigan and this is The Practical Leader. This is part 6, it's video 6 of a series on motivation and manipulation. I'm going to start this one and the next one at least in addressing the subject of the difference between the two, and especially on manipulation. Both are very common. Manipulation might be more so. Let's dive in. Phil was a salesperson at a major store, and he was working hard at his desk. This store sold home improvement products and installations on some of them, and Phil happened to be working at a desk where they did sell installations. He was working hard there actually one evening. The department manager came over, dropped a file on his desk, and asked him to pursue a certain sale. Now normally this would be just fine. The problem was that this particular sale had already been on the desk, and both Phil and the other sales executive in that department and the immediate manager had looked at that and had spoken with the client. The client had refused, more than once, had refused to get the necessary building permits for this installation. Now, it's illegal to proceed with an installation without building permits, and certainly this store was not going to go ahead. And so Phil explained to the manager, we've already done this. She refuses to get a permit, so this thing is done. The department manager would not let that go, and he kept insisting that Phil drop this, what he was doing, and take up this new job. Now, the problem was Phil was working on sure things worth $35,000, and we already knew from what Phil had told us that this was a dead issue, this one that the manager wanted to do. So they kept going back and forth over this, and finally the department manager uses a manipulative technique. He says, "Don't you care about the store's numbers?" Now, of course Phil cares about the store's numbers. If he didn't, he wouldn't be working on $35,000 worth of sales for the store, and it is precisely because he cared about the store's numbers that he was not pursuing a dead issue. But a manipulative person will inject this because it's a guilt issue, and it begins to call into play something that is not related to this at all, but it's designed to manipulate someone to get them to do what it is that you want them to do. It's very precisely the difference between motivation and manipulation. Now, motivation's attitude is that of influence. And effective leaders and managers are going to do what they can to influence others, those that work for them and their associates, so that their energy and their insight and their creativity and their sense of responsibility and their work ethic all focus towards objectives that are important to everyone. Manipulation's attitude is that of control. I'm going to get you to do what I want you to do, regardless of what you want to do. Now, are there occasions for that? Yeah, in times of crisis, you don't have focus groups to decide what to do. You have to go ahead and take charge. But that's a very short-sighted and short-term method of management. And so you don't want to be a puppet master where you're manipulating everybody. For one thing, it bottlenecks then at you. If you're a manipulative manager, everything bottlenecks at you because of your need for and demand for. Now, the difference between manipulation and motivation is that both have the same objective. The problem is they go about it by different means. The objective of leadership and management is to efficiently produce a particular outcome within a specified amount of time. That's the objective. The means whereby this is accomplished varies greatly depending on whether you motivate or manipulate. Now, the manipulator distrusts people. The manipulator believes they cannot and will not perform properly without direction, oversight, and monitoring. Now, I'm going to get into this in future series here, but it does depend on the experience and character of the employee. And there are times early on when somebody's experience level or competence level is not good, that it requires more insight, more management on you. Not manipulation, but more management on your part. As a person gains experience and competence and confidence, those of you who've been following my blog, you know I talk about that, the difference between competence and confidence, two key ingredients in successful employees and associates. The more competence and confidence they have, the less you need to interfere with them. Manipulators, it doesn't matter to them. They're going to interfere and they're going to meddle and manipulate anyway. Now, the motivator knows that true independence of action in accordance with predefined objectives is quite reasonable and probable. I'm going to say that again. The motivator knows that true independence of action in accordance with predefined objectives is quite reasonable and probable. Motivators know that they can inspire, they can direct, and they can trust people to get the job done because they know them. Been talking early on this series, those who motivate us best know us best. Now here's a double list. Motivators understand that strength of leadership comes from influence, not control. Strength of leadership comes from influence, not control. They desire long-term effectiveness more than they want short-term efficiency. True enough, manipulators can be very efficient, but only in the short term. I'll talk about that in just a second. They function in faith. They trust people and they have a belief that because they know them, because they have trained them, because they understand what makes the engine run, they can have confidence in them that they're going to be able to get the job done. They care for people as much or more than they care for getting things done. Key attitude difference. Motivators care for people as much or more than they care for the things that the person is doing. Manipulators are not that way. Therefore, in the long term, motivators are more effective than manipulators because they're training, they're developing, they're inspiring, they're releasing, they're learning to extend their reach, multiply their effectiveness, and divide their work. Manipulators, however, must have control. They got to have it. They function in fear. They're afraid the person is going to screw it up. So if they're not there to monitor, to watch, to give direction, to meddle, to interfere, everything's going to get all fouled up. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes you need to manage. But manipulators function in this all the time. They care for people too, but in the clinch, they will allow their task orientation to override concern and focus on the job. They will regard people as objects in the same way that the tools or devices or equipment that they may use in their department is a tool, a device, or a piece of equipment. Manipulators, in the end, will look at people as objectives rather than subjects. And they have deep issues with trust. They don't trust anybody. And true enough, manipulators are more efficient, at least in the beginning, but there's a bottleneck issue. There's a problem that you stretch yourself too thin because you're having to control all the puppets on the stage, and you simply lack the time, the skill, and the strength to be able to do. Now, you can go to thepracticalleader.com and you can read the full article, which you will enjoy, because I go into some more things that I don't have the time to go into here. If you're looking on YouTube, leave me a comment down below. Subscribe to this channel. If you're looking at this on my blog, leave a comment too. I'd love to hear from you. And we're going to talk more about manipulation and its effects in the workplace in the next video, which will be out in a couple of days. See you soon.